Okay, let's bring the meeting to order. Start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Armstrong. Here. Fallon. Here. Farrell. Here. Happy.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Wood. Here. Mayor Cranley.
Here. Additions or amendments to the agenda.
Unless you want to move the sheriff or Patty Fink up to the front, there are none.
We're just saying to the front, way up here where the public hearings are at.
After number 4.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. I'm sure they've got lots of things. They're still dealing with snow up there. So we'll move them up there. Okay, adoption of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the adoption.
Thank you. With the mug.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose?
No. Reasons number C.
Okay. And that's it, because you're still uneasy with
We've
that.
already done over.
Yeah, okay, I'm good with that then. All right, public hearing. All right, so we're just, before going to action stuff, we'll have the sheriff come on up and give us some information.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming. We
Absolutely.
appreciate you coming. And just from our end of it here too, you deal with it, you see the issues all over the state, all over the country, as far as issues with crime and all the other things that are going on. And it appears that we're having our bump in that. I guess you give us more information on whether that's true or not, but it appears it's happening in lots of other places. We have to come down to get some, well, one, let us know what's going on, and two, maybe help us in directions that we've gone. We've got a number of ideas, but what are all those ideas we're working, and maybe you can add some ideas to us on what we can do here.
Sure.
So the floor is yours.
Sure. Well, first of all, with me, I brought Deputy Isaac Brown, and he actually is working the Cascade Box contract, and so he has worked down here since the beginning of the year, since January, right? And then October. Yeah, October, and then last year he worked. Was that the first time you started? It was October. Yeah. 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 So he's pretty aware of all the calls going on down here, and so I brought him along to he can answer specific questions if you have any. And then when I talked to Mr. Zimmerman, he indicated that there was concerns from the council about maybe some specific crimes, or that, wondering if there was a pattern of crimes, and some of it was related to property crime. So I had taken a look at kind of the calls that we got related to that, and there's not a major pattern that we're seeing right now. I mean, there's been some one-offs. There have been a few trailers stolen, and there were 2 travel trailers stolen from Shahala, and I know at least one of them was in broad daylight. So that was something that we don't necessarily see all the time. And I think, part of it is the city's proximity to the interstate, and pretty easy on, easy off. And then I know there was a rash of car prowls, I think in February on Bell Street. I think like 9 vehicles were broken into in one night. And, we see that periodically in different areas of the county. And oftentimes it's like, young kids or something that go into cars and open them, see what they can find, or people that are doing that specifically go out and are trying to find unlocked vehicles or easy targets where people leave valuable items in their vehicles. So, going forward, and I think I've talked about this in the past with the council, like we're happy to work with the community. I mean, there's been discussions about having neighborhood meetings, about doing something maybe more organized. If there's concerns, we're happy to help facilitate that, to work with the neighborhoods. I mean, if somebody wants to host a meeting at their house, we're happy to show up and do that and give pointers, give tips, on what you can do to protect your residents, your property, your valuables, et cetera. And there's some simple things, and then how do you be a good neighbor and reporting things and things like that. We've had some issues in the past too, where I think some things have gotten to the city and there was concerns from citizens. But when we looked into it, there weren't any reports made to our office. And so it's really important that people report things to our office so that there's a record of it, you can follow up on it, et cetera. So, but happy to answer any questions, specific concerns that the council or you may have, Mr. Mayor, and anything that we can do to bolster our service down here that we provide.
Anybody got a question?
There's a few of us that were thinking of getting neighborhood watch signs. And my question to you is, what's the legalities about that? I mean, do we actually have to have so many people signed up on a sheet of paper to legally be able to put the signs up? Can you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I have to look at that. I mean, honestly, probably some of the signage is going to come down to you folks, to city ordinance and things like that. But to be an organized neighborhood watch, I can't think of the actual organization, neighborhood watch, or being put together in my career anywhere in the county. I've seen signs, and it's perhaps a deterrent or things like that. But there's some the name is escaping me right now, but there's an app or a website. It's called Nextdoor. And some of you may be familiar with it. That's used a lot. I know that Marion County here in Oregon, their sheriff's office has a big presence on Nextdoor. And they've used it really successfully to kind of start that discussion. I mean, you're able to use those tools now, right? The technology. And so you've got neighbors talking, looking out for each other, reporting things going on in neighborhoods, and using that platform of Nextdoor to kind of communicate that.
I've used that. There's not very many people around here that use it.
Right. I'm part of one of the groups, like, I just kind of monitor it in the Upper Valley, and it's more used for like selling things and things like that. But I think that, going forward, there's an opportunity that if there was an interest from the city, that we could try to do a more concerted effort and have people get on there. For people that can't make meetings, if you were going to do some organized meetings, or that work out of town or only here in the evenings, whatever the case may be, that gives them a way to be more connected and just kind of stay in the loop. So, and I know in Marion County, they did some real concerted efforts to get people to sign up on there, and the sheriff's office made sure that they were engaged in that platform as well. So then it really kind of created that more kind of community feel and people looking out for each other.
Also on the neighborhood watch thing, I had mentioned it right when I got on council to Gordon. I was under the impression it has to be a citizen that sort of organizes it. We can't organize a neighborhood watch. It has to be.
I don't remember the specifics on that, but it's not a city function.
Right. I did look it up on the internet that they do have like a neighborhood watch. And you can sign up. I think as a group you can sign up for it, and then I think they also help show you how to organize it.
Yeah, and I think you would definitely want. I think you kind of want that grassroots, want it from the citizen neighborhood perspective, so that you have buy-in, so that everybody's actually getting something out of it. I think that'd be great.
We already have citizens that go around and do that. When I wasn't working, my daughter and I would drive around from like west end of Cascade Box all the way out to Wyatt. Ran into a couple of things and we'd call you guys. And then we have at least one other guy that does it, and he did it at the same time. I mean, there are people that want to do it. I think there just needs to be somebody to bring everybody together to do it.
Sheriff English, how's your personnel situation these days? I mean, and your hours of operation, are you back to 24-hour again?
Yep, we are full staff. We have been since July. We've had 24-hour coverage since October 1st.
How much would it cost us to get another officer here covering, you know, the late night hours, early morning?
We could work out, you know, what that would cost. I've worked with Mr. Zimmerman before. I'd have to sit down and kind of crunch some numbers, but probably in the neighborhood of about 135,000. If you wanted a full-time deputy, but that's rough math.
In addition to what we're paying now,
Mhm.
Yeah.
How many hours would that be roughly? Full-time, is that 40 hours a week?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, there are our deputies work an 84-hour schedule right now, 2 weeks. They're on 12-hour shifts. Yeah.
So the hours that we have to be around here, how are those, I guess, what hours are those? And is that based at all on like, when we're seeing crime occur?
So generally, we don't publicly share our hours,
Smart.
but it's like an afternoon night shift, and it rotates. So what we had actually found in the past, because we've had the pleasure of having a contract with the city my entire career, and for well back probably into the 80s at least, and what we found was we had deputies that were working set shift that never changed, and people knew when they worked and when they didn't. So right now it's on a rotating, and so those hours and days may change a little bit. The days definitely change, so we try to kind of rotate that, and it also, gives the deputy that's assigned or that fits the shift for Cascade Locks the opportunity to kind of see different days of the week, different things going on, because the weekend nights are going to be different than a weeknight. Interact with the community, different parts of the community. And sometimes we'll do some hour changes too, so there's more kind of daytime interaction, because days are a lot different than nights.
And then the statistics that we get, I mean, these seem like big numbers for a small community. Is there any standardization like per capita, so we could compare apples to apples and that is done on these statistics to identify outliers?
Yeah, so every few years, it's the FBI does their national crime reporting, and it's okay. And it usually comes out like for this year, for instance, it would probably take at least 2 years for that data to come out. And you've got to understand the nuances and kind of the flaws there, because it's dependent on the information that's going in, and they're not doing, it's basically a repository. So it's being reported to them from our crime statistics, specifically the reports. So that 16, there were 16 reports. So it's just that data that's being reported. The calls for service do not get reported to the FBI. I can tell you that I think last year we were at 85 or 8,600 calls for service in the county that our deputies actually responded to. And that doesn't include traffic stops. That's not officer initiated, that's citizen initiated calls for service. So, and it's not just a call that comes into our dispatch center, it's anything that a deputy physically handles. And so there was about 8,500. So if you then kind of take a look at that number, which is monthly, it's not that high. I think it's, for if you look at the population of Cascade Locks and then the total population of the county or what we serve, because I think we're about, we police about 17,000 of the county residents. So it's really, I think it's pretty on par with the population.
This number, are these reports, is that public information?
Yep, yeah, and we actually, so people can get on to our website and we actually do crime mapping that anybody can get on and take a look at.
You can go back at certain time periods and get heat maps to see where the most activity is. It's really interesting.
Then, any suggestions you have for things that the city could implement to try to support law enforcement, help reduce crime, we're not currently doing, that we should be considering?
Well, I think the communication piece is big, and like I said, I always enjoy coming down here. I, like to hear from Mr. Zimmerman if there's issues that we can address. And then there's the proactive stuff. We'd really like to get out in the community. We like to come to community events, have the opportunity to do public education. And we're happy to come talk with any group, myself or one of our team members. But I think the communication is huge. If there's an issue, we want to know about it. What can we do better? How can we help each other? What things can we do to work together? If you're hearing things from your constituents, then we want to hear about it as well. Where can we work together better?
What about homeowners and citizens? And some of the things we've talked about internally is making sure, you've got your porch lights on, got your doors locked. We always just talking about that. Cameras, if you can put those around your property. Those are some of the things we discussed. Any other ideas that you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's, if you're talking about property, you want to make sure that it's well lit, that you cut back shrubs and trees from your windows so that it's visible. Sometimes we'll see these houses with big shrubs that block people's view from the front of the house or from access points, and so keeping that trimmed up. And cameras they're great now. I mean, they're cheap. You can stream them to your phone. For like $50, you can get a pretty darn good camera. So those are great. But like in your vehicles, when we see these car break-ins, don't make yourself a victim. Do everything that you can to avoid getting in that situation. So don't leave valuables in plain view, purses, phones, money, because people that are breaking into cars are just looking for a really quick opportunity. And whether, if you're not locking your car, you need to lock the car. But, sometimes we'll see, unfortunately, people's windows get broken out in order to get into the car because there's something that piqued their interest. And we see it a lot at trailheads. We see a lot of car break-ins, and a crew can go through there and they're coming out of the metro area somewhere generally because we're able to track credit cards and things like that. But they'll come up to a trailhead and people have left a camera bag, a purse, a bunch of luggage, whatever it may be, in plain view, and they'll smash out 5, 6, 10 windows and just reach in, and about as quick as they reach in, they're gone. And so keeping valuables out of your car, things like that that's really important. And then we've seen these trailer thefts with quite a few of those actually around the county, and the 3 that I talked about here. But investing in a hitch lock, which is pretty cheap. You put a padlock through and people they're going to have to work to get that off. That at least protects you a little bit. But we think we're safe in our communities, and we should feel safe in our communities. So these things happen, and it kind of shakes you to the core. And I think, again, like I talked about at the beginning, because of the proximity of this city to the interstate, it makes it easy off, easy on sometimes. And so, we see a lot of stolen cars get actually dumped in Cascade Locks coming out of the metro area, or out, in Wyeth and things like that, because you can get off the interstate quickly, and be out of there.
There was I don't know if you guys even knew about it, but there was an incident where people got broken into at Multnomah Falls and all of their belongings, or a lot of their belongings were dumped out here in Cascade Docks. I don't know if you guys had, or if I can talk about that, or.
Yeah, you can talk, yeah.
So my daughter and I were doing one of our little drive around town, and we went down there and we started seeing makeup along. We saw one makeup bag we posted on the neighborhood watch page. And a woman messaged and said her car got broken into and she was traveling through from Montana to go to the coast with one of her girlfriends. And she said she was missing a bunch of other stuff and somebody else had found one of their suitcases. So they were picking that up and they'll come pick the makeup bag up. My daughter and I drove back through like Blackberry Beach area and started picking up makeup all along the road. Their blue jeans, like really expensive blue jeans, were in the garbage. Their toothbrushes were everywhere. They're dumping like belongings out there now.
Yeah, that's unfortunately really common, so we'll see, because they'll get everything that they can, get it in the car, and as they're driving, somebody's going through, and so if they don't want, yeah, exactly.
Kathy,
So, one question I had, we've talked a little bit about possibly, we're all trying to rack our brains, trying to come up with better solutions. One was to install cameras throughout the city. Is Hood River, do you have anything like that? And is it successful, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think the city has any cameras that I'm aware of.
Got some ODOT.
Not the speeding cams, but.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got cameras like on the courthouse that look out on the exterior and into the downtown corridor and around the neighborhood around the courthouse, but really the city doesn't have anything that's organized I'm aware of. And I think you get into some potential, you've got to kind of dot your I's and cross your T's with that stuff legally. If you start looking at that, yeah.
Mhm. Do you have any experience with that? Dotting the i's and crossing the t's with cameras?
Not for the municipality.
Are you aware of any municipalities that have done or implemented that?
I'm just trying to think if I know I can think of actual cities that have done that. I know that that's really common in Europe, and there is a ton of surveillance on streets, in England and in particular in London. But I'm trying to think of outside of you mentioned ODOT cams and things like that. If I can't think of a city that's done that. There might be, again, kind of these one-off situations where you may want to put a camera up in an area that's a problem, but not necessarily, surveilling like the whole downtown corridor or something like that. But there's certainly, times when you may want to put cameras up in certain areas because you have problems, or you want to deter theft or whatever the issue may be, and it'd be a good preventative measure.
And when we were discussing it, like you mentioned, it's cheesy on and off of the freeway. I think we've got just 4 ingress and egress points for the whole city, which is somewhat unique. It's so it seems like it would be, first glance, relatively easy solution to implement, where we're monitoring traffic coming in and out. That way, if we know at the time that something took place, and we look for that pop-up camera that disappeared, maybe having a little more intelligence that could be useful.
So like the fire hall could have one for security, right? That would get that whole road right there. Would there be anything wrong with that?
Well, except, what are you gonna see? You're gonna see the side of the car, you're not gonna see any kind of identification, license plate. That would be tough.
So the ports have, like on the bridges that in Hood River and here, they have cameras, and they can be really helpful.
When they've caught people.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they need to protect their assets as well, for sure, but that can be very valuable information.
That's what it's got me thinking about this was, well, what if we had these for other ingress and egress points? Those cameras have been helpful for catching folks on the bridge.
I think Cave Junction is a town that went after cameras, but then the county sheriff decided to pick up his coverage of their town, so they dropped it. Dave Junction was one town that was looking at cameras.
I would just, whenever the patrol officer is here, I'm not downtown a lot, so before, I would notice that they would be sitting there a long time on Wanapole, like trying to catch speeders or something. As a citizen of the community, I would like to see not so much of that and maybe the patrolman going through the neighborhoods and seeing what's going on in our town and stuff. I think that would be, I would like to see that more, where that way the officer is engaging with the people that live here and not so much. And hopefully we'll get the speed things in towns, the radar things, so we can try to help with the speeding problem, but I don't see the officers necessarily going through the neighborhoods and stuff.
Not getting into too much of kind of my strategy, but you will see me sitting a lot in the downtown area. I do have 2 reasons. You can spot violations while you're sitting there, but also it's a good opportunity for people in the community to go up to my car and actually talk to me. Any one of you see me sitting there and you want to come up and chat with me, please do. I encourage that. I love hearing what's going on in the community. I'm very open to that. But then as the night goes on, I will drive around. I have been often, and make my rounds and go out and feel people that typically belong there. So I do try to drive around and try to make a good mix of that.
We've caught you on our security camera wondering what you're doing on the road.
Well, we've had those concerns too before, and our vehicles, all of our vehicles are GPS and they're GPS mapped and they have historical data. And so we've had concerns about, well, we're not getting any patrols down here, and say, okay, well, we can take a look and see, and then we can say, well, they've actually been down there 37 times, but it's, at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but yeah, I think that's great. And I will tell you, we, before I was sheriff, the deputies and myself included would work the interstate a lot. But I kind of changed that because I want our deputies out in our communities, patrolling the neighborhoods, and not on the interstate. We have Oregon State Police that can do that. I don't mind if our deputies work some on the interstate, but I don't want, our deputies out there. I want them here in town. And so we really encourage that.
I was at an event recently and there was someone from Search and Rescue that was there and they said they were going to start discussions with you and about maybe how different things that they could come in and do like at trailheads and things, check in. Do you know anything about that?
Do you know what organization it was?
Is it PNW?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so PNW is one of our search and rescue organizations.
Right.
And so we are working with them. We meet with them regularly, but we work with them even more regularly. But yeah, our plan is to do some more proactive stuff at trailheads this year. They're really excited about that. We did some of it up on Mount Hood last year at some of the snow parks, particularly when we got into spring, but definitely want to do that like at Eagle Creek and some of the busier areas on the west end of the county. So yeah, we've been organizing that and coming up with strategies so that they can do that. And we're really fortunate to be able to pick them up to assist the Craig Rats. The Pacific Northwest Search and Rescue is about 100 members. And we are using them a lot. So we set a search and rescue record last year for number, and we're well on our way this year.
Sherry Magdalene, you know Sherry? Sherry, and her and I are doing a fundraiser this year for PNW and our EMS.
Oh, great.
So make sure you guys all know too. We haven't set a date yet.
Yeah, so PNW is, they're trying to do some recruiting in the county now since they're going to be one of our units. So we're excited about that. I want to assist.
They're a good group. I like them.
Yep.
Cool.
I have a question. You don't mind? My name's Bill, and I live in Cascade Lock here. And I think that there's a glaring missing piece here. We can ask you to patrol, and you can catch all these guys, and then what? they don't have the money, not gonna lock them up. I'm still out 3 tanks of gas, right?
Mhm.
I think what we're missing here as a part of this conversation is the state's attorney from Hood River County. Because what, our cameras are all great, well, but then what, right? I mean, then what? Then we're in the same boat we were before, we know who did it, but nobody's gonna do anything about it. Not because you don't want to, but because the person who can is not a part of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we have a new district attorney and she's been pretty aggressive about that and prosecuting old cases. And they have been pulling cases from about 3 years ago that nothing has happened with. And so they're doing a great job. They have some new people in there and we work really well with the DA's office. So I think we're really fortunate in that respect, but really there's a lot of things changing in this state as far as how crimes are handled. We're not taking a lot of misdemeanors to jail. But honestly, there's a lot of times where they shouldn't be in jail because that's not the issue.
Fair enough, but
Yeah.
but the point is, there's a lack of a consequence, or there's no deterrent.
Yeah.
The camera on the side of my house did not stop that fellow from punching a hole in my gas tank. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and
Yeah, but it's again, it goes back to the way things are going, particularly on the West Coast, as far as accountability and things like that. And it's just a different direction. It's a different direction that the legislature is wanting to go. It's and so we're we're executive branch, and so we carry out the orders made by the legislative branch. And so so when we've seen a change in political philosophy or things like that, we have to shift. We've seen a lot of changes, particularly in the last 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Very different.
Well, the pandemic changed a lot of things for you
What's that?
too. The pandemic changed a lot of things for you too. The ability to keep people in because they're
Yeah, so,
close quarters and that type of
correct.
thing.
Yeah, definitely with the jail, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're still, even though the COVID protocols have been lifted for us as general public in congregate settings like jails, they still exist. So we still have to do the isolation, the quarantine periods, masking. So all of that is still in place in our jails. So when we have to do the quarantining, which I think it's not a bad thing, but it limits our space. And so we're really limiting the number of people that can be housed.
You got one other question behind you, Sean. My name is Ken Sewell. I live here in town. We were talking about the signs. I talked to Tamara a while back. And of course, I'm part of the military also. Anytime that you can change an area, that should throw up a red flag for who's there coming in and doing this harm to our community. So I'm thinking if we put signs in heavy areas that are getting hit, you would think that would throw up a red flag. They're going, oh, there's something new. Just a thought.
People are paying attention.
Right, right.
what kind of signs? Like the neighborhood
So
watch?
when I used to work for the city of Tiger, we had neighborhood watch signs. They were about 7 feet tall. And we actually had to go around and put around in different areas because certain areas were getting hit really hard. So, and of course they had the I-5 real close to Hall Street. So it was kind of like us here where where people come in and out really fast, can't catch them. So they got tired of it. They started putting signs in. And then they also had some people, like one specific street, they would check with their neighbor, hey, can I put this camera up? And you had to kind of cross-sect the cameras. So as long as your neighbor goes in that area, it was good because then all the blank spots were actually covered. It worked pretty well for them.
Did you find it a significant decrease and it helped?
My cousin says, yeah, he says that since they did that, and plus having people who actually will go out for, that's a city area.
Right.
There's a lot of traffic, but
Right.
just this one specific street, it made a big difference. And then one of the guys was telling me, he says, best thing you can do is don't let your house or you're outside your house look inviting. Basically, you leave out a gas can, you leave out something you think is gonna be okay the next day, it's gonna be gone. If it's not welded or chained down, of course, it doesn't be chained down anymore. If it's not welded down, they're gonna take it. So, and then I don't know if all of them, Deputy Brown knows. I'm out quite a bit. I'm out, from midnight to 2, at least.
I've seen some really hair raising stuff going on here. You know, we got, matter of fact, I was gonna ask you about this. The 2 city bathrooms we got down here by the post office, are those open 24/7?
Yes, they are. I maintain them. So are you saying you shouldn't?
No, well,
I just cleaned a bunch of graffiti up there.
I asked that because 2 nights ago, there was a guy, he had a bicycle.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of- He sleeps in there. My concern is if we have people that are going back and forth and looking for a place to go to the restroom, it'd be a really sad thing if someone sent their own kid in there to go to the bathroom and that guy's in there and something happens. You know?
Well, I do worry about that, but that is the issue is
Right.
somebody trying to get their kid a bathroom at a different hour. So,
I know. And the other thing I worry about is there is a heavy drug use. I mean, nationwide, pretty much. You know, those bathrooms get cleaned up pretty well, I would think, the next morning or.
I try to get them at least touched up there every day, but I don't always do a thorough cleaning on them. But I make sure they're all stocked, and I try to get the sink and the toilet cleaned pretty good. The floor maybe, yeah, and the public works gets it too.
Yeah, well, that was a couple nights ago, and I kind of encouraged him. I said, it's not a good idea for you to stay here. I said, you know, maybe go get a room or something, but it's not a good idea for you being here. He was nice. He did leave.
Well, I've had to get our sheriff's deputies down there and because I've tried to get them out and they won't come out, but then when the deputy shows up. So people have locked themselves in there, they're staying in there, locked themselves in there, but it's just the same thing. I hate to get myself or us in a position where we can't do anything for anybody else because of and those things happen, but they don't happen. Well, a lot, but they do happen. And I noticed the guy that was down there and I had a conversation with him. So, but yeah, they do come through and that's people coming through and we do give them a pretty clean bath. And in the winter time, the city even heats them. So somebody who's moving along and cold, they're looking for. Outside the bridge, the Forest Service one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a miserable one. Did they lock it?
They lock it at
No,
night? No?
they lock it through the winter, but once they open in the summer, it stays open and they maintain it.
You guys think we should be locked in the bathroom at night?
It's kind of, I don't know. I won't weigh in on that. It's kind of a city.
So
issue.
can I say something? I would like to address the council maybe later, but for this specific topic, I'm a parent, like my son needed to use the restroom in the middle of the night. I would find a place for him to go. Being a local citizen, I think that it would be reasonable for us to lock it at a specific time each night. And maybe we make an exception for PCT days, specific things where we know, it's going to get heavy use. It's going to be for, people that should be using it, and not using it or,
Well, thank you.
being a safety concern for us.
That's a great point. We did lock it. We used to lock it at like 9 o'clock. And then people would just go around the back.
And just go right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's locked. They go online, but I can clean that up.
We'd rather use the toilet than go out and try to clean it up. That's a good point.
So another question. So different parts of Cascade Locks, like Blackbird Beach and those areas, Parkers, is there signs up there that says when they're closed, when people are shipping down there? The reason I ask that is there's always campers sitting down here, or people camping up down there all the time. We had one up on Wyeth. Those people were there for like 10, 14 days or what it was. And I went up there and cleaned up a bunch of trash, but I don't know if there's certain areas that's actually posted.
I thought out there at one point there were day use signs as part of that.
But this has been years.
Yeah, it's been
That's
years.
court property and it should be closed at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it posted? Because I've never seen, so I looked.
I've seen signs posted,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Have you?
Well, the port has security and I work at the port too. And the maintenance staff down there, they go out there constantly. They're always looking and they don't let anybody, if there's somebody out there staying, they're gone. These guys, they're pretty, they're pretty into making sure nobody's gonna be hanging out there for anything.
The Fort security we got, what hours do they, did he just work?
They work the same thing. They're like, they work a variety of hours. An example of that, we put on the Christmas display up at the bridge, and every year for the last 2 years, we've lost some of the displays and all of our extension cords. But they put the security on it this year. People came, but the security was there to prevent it. So we never lost anything this year. So that's,
No
to me,
missing
it's well worth it,
uniforms.
because it cost us cost the board a ton of money to replace all those extension, they take them all. And a lot of times they just cut the end of them and go with it. But anyway,
I would have some cameras out there with flat rate, beach and the fishing access road. If you look for him, you'll find him. He doesn't hide it too well.
and again, Todd's trying to protect the interests of the board. So yeah, he does. And those raise his own personal, and I think I don't report me about some, I don't know. Yes.
I have a concern about the PCT parking lot. At nighttime, there seems to be a large amount of traffic there, and it doesn't seem like it's hikers. And as far as trying to call the board to reporting of it, it's very difficult to get anybody on that phone down there. And when the time I went down there in person to complain about it, I was told the security guy wasn't going to be there for several hours.
Are you talking about up towards,
The bridge.
Yeah,
Harvey, is that what?
Harvey Road.
Harvey, or are you talking? that
Yeah.
one? Oh.
up at the top of Moody Street.
We've seen mattresses
Maybe-
up behind the
Maybe
water.
non-emergency would be better. Or if there's something suspicious going on.
Is that Ford up there?
Yeah, that is the port trail end
Okay.
for the PCT. Like I came home at nighttime and seen like this white van with like the state trooper have all these people pulled out, all this stuff. And then the next day, see that vehicle up there hanging out. And like, I've been talked to at the, down at Bear Mountain, who just walking the dog, not having a parking pass. And I doubt that person would also have a parking pass. And like, who's regulating that?
The board is,
That would need to be,
the port security guy keeps an eye on.
I do see him going up there, but at nighttime, I never do.
So,
Well, I don't know all of their hours, because same thing, but I do see them come by my place going up there.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, so they,
Would a board meeting be a good place to talk about that?
Yep.
The board meetings, they have meetings just like these. I feel one of those.
anyway. I think we're gonna let the sheriff, I just want to say one more thing for the sheriff here, though, that been around, I've been on here for a number of years. The sheriff does all he can for Cascade Locks. He's worked hard down, and he always, out of all his deputies, he always tries to find a deputy that will work well here in Cascade Locks, and I believe he's done a really good job with it. When the deputies come down, they do take it in, and they're not from here. So they could come down and they could hang out all they want, but they don't. He does a good job of picking out, he just doesn't just send anybody down here. He sends somebody down that he believes will work well and wants to be part of a small community. And in my experience, they've all done a really good job here. But again, you got, like anything, like I said, it only takes seconds to get into something and they're gone. They can't be everywhere all the time. Security can't be there all the time. Things are gonna get by you. So just like we're all talking about here, there's a lot of things where we have to have our own, take up our own responsibility on. And it's good to get a lot of good ideas from people like this that we can use. But right now, unless we have another question from the council.
just to address the gentleman in the back, so what would be the best if you're up there and it's port property, but you see something that maybe should be reported? Should they call the non-emergency number, or what would be the best? Call the non-emergency.
Non-emergency, it's 24,
Yeah.
it's 24/7. Yeah.
And then also, I did want to say, I've lived out here for 4 years and have met interaction with your deputies and sheriff, and it's always been professional and nice. And It's always just been a good experience. And I appreciate you guys coming by to the events and tonight as well. So I just, no one's ever been adversarial or anything like that. So I really appreciate it.
And thanks for the feedback. I always appreciate it. And if there was an issue, I'd like to hear that feedback too. But we do have a great team, a great professional, very ethical team. So we're very fortunate. And I was just, the mayor kind of brought up a point about our contract and fulfilling that. It just for the council's information, because there's a lot of new council people now over the last few years, but when we were having staffing issues and we had to cut 24-hour coverage, the Cascade Locks contract was prioritized and it was always filled. And so we shorted the valley to ensure that our contract with the city was fulfilled because you were paying extra for that. And so I made it very clear to our team that we will fulfill that. And so that will always continue.
And then I have one more question. There was a sailboat out on the river that was there for a couple of years. I think it broke loose maybe this winter. But is that something, because we've called it in a couple times and just slowly, I kept seeing the mast was gone and then the rail, they were stripping it out there, but it's been out there for a couple of years.
I can talk to our marine deputy about it. Sometimes we had that issue up in the port of the river with not necessarily that exact issue, but with like boats being there for years, moored out, you know, in areas that they shouldn't be. But you get into the sticky ground with the Oregon Department of Lands and whose jurisdiction is it and what, and so, but I'll ask him about that.
We weren't sure who to.
Yeah, I mean, it gets really convoluted on the waterways for some reason. Just kind of whose responsibility is it, who has what authority, who can remove them, you know, who can cite them if necessary or whatever. So I'll check on that for you though. Sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you again for having me. Really appreciate it. And really encourage the council and Mr. Mayor, if there's any issues or anything that we can work together on, even proactively, you know, to improve service, to improve the safety of the community. We're always happy to do that. So, and I appreciate the opportunity always to come in and speak with this group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you don't have to stay if you don't want to stay. If you got things, if you got
It
things
won't
to do,
hurt our feelings.
if you have things to do, free to get up and
Get back down for
we may be here a while.
the snow.
Dinner.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, action items.
We have Patty Fink with us.
Oh, okay.
Patty? unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for letting me come tonight. I apologize. It sounded like you had a full agenda and I squeezed myself in here, but I just did want to let you know about some new services this summer that we're planning, and the board, ODOT has asked us to increase the number of trips between Gateway and Multnomah Falls because of the waterfall corridor permitting system and the permit program at Multnomah Falls, so that we can capture more folks by transit. My board has agreed to do that, but have sort of requested that the service continue on and touch Hood River County. And so we've been exploring different options, and coming to Cascade Locks was one of the options that the board had asked us to explore. And I think I was provided in your packet the memo that I wrote about the options and the proposal that we have on the board. And the board wanted me to check with you to make sure that any concerns you had would be addressed and that we would be aware of them. And so where the proposal is, we typically have 8 trips per day during the summer. The initial proposal is to increase it to 16 trips from Memorial Day to until June 11th, until after the schools are closed, and then go to 28 trips per day, about 30-minute service from Gateway to Cascade Locks with stops. Right now, we're looking at Multnomah Falls. We have approached the Bonneville Fish Hatchery, and then of course 2 Cascade Locks. The other key piece is that there will be marketing and promotion of the transit service to travel from Portland to Multnomah Falls, to the Fish Hatchery and Cascade Locks, for access to the gorge and the many activities available at these sites. We would agree to, together with ODOT, to do marketing and promotion of local businesses, biking, hiking, and visitor options in the 3 areas. We talked with Gordon and Olga from the port about different service options and where we might turn around. We're still looking at the easiest way to do that, but Gordon suggested that we include a new stop along Wanapa at the small parking lot at Forest Lane in Wanapa. I think it's called the cemetery lot, but don't quote me on that. And while that would be made available so folks could park there, it would not be advertised as a park and ride. So folks who happen to park there and wanted to catch the bus, they could do that, but wouldn't necessarily be advertised as such. And the idea would be that if this program is successful, that we would work more actively with you next year to identify how to make the program more beneficial to local tourism and visitor efforts in subsequent years. So I just wanted to sort of go over that with you and see if there's any issues or concerns that you had about it, and kind of take that back to my board and allow us to consider it in the options that we're looking into.
So, Mr. Mayor, so what I'm hearing is that they want to use the cemetery parking lot as a park and ride?
No, they do not want to use it as a parking right, just as a drop-off point as they go from it starts at Gateway, and you can get on the shuttle and you can stop at the falls and come to.
So the bus is not going to go inside there and turn around?
Well, that's a possibility. But it's not advertised as a park and ride. It's advertised as simply a drop-off point.
Because even if they're at 30-minute services, if somebody's having an internment at the cemetery, more than likely you got a bus coming in there.
Yeah, but that the frequency of there'd be more shuttles than there would be internments. We don't have that many internments.
Well, I know one.
Cemeteries.
That isn't a primary spot for us to want to do a turnaround. I agree with you that it's tight there, and the only agreement we came to with the mayor is just to stop there, so that if somebody did want to park there, they knew that it was a parking was available, or they were just visiting Cascade Locks and they wanted to park there and catch the bus, they could, but we would not advertise it as such. So, or if somebody lived along Forest Lane and wanted to catch the bus into town, they could do that there.
Again, this is the shuttle. This is not the cat service.
Yeah, I know, but it still sounds like they're using it as a park and ride.
No, we aren't using it as a park and ride. It wouldn't be formalized that way. We don't have to put the stop there. It was just a suggestion by Gordon and Olga, just to allow for additional parking should it be needed. Was not ever intended to be a park and ride. We understand. We aren't looking to have folks use their car to get to Cascade Locks.
Your Honor, I have a question. Why are we not using the stops that we currently have?
We are.
Why do we need to change
We don't. We would use the existing stops. The only recommendation was that we might want to have an additional stop should it be needed.
I have a comment. I can understand the stops if they're at trailheads downtown or points of interest, but where the parking lot is at the cemetery, that doesn't, other than if someone's local or something, but I would hate to see those parking spots taken up.
But that's why we're doing this. So this is a discussion, and that was, so we can discuss that. Now we know that is something
to talk
potentially
about.
can happen. It doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
No,
But this council can make the decision on whether it's gonna happen.
exactly. That's why we came to you, is if there's concerns about that, we certainly don't want to do that.
Right.
The biggest concern we had is where are you gonna turn the bus around? Ideally, you're gonna go out Wanapa, you're gonna go out Frontage Road, come back over the bridge and come back Forest Lane. Problem is, there's a bridge closed.
Yeah.
So we're talking about maybe going and turning around at the entrance to the way station and coming back down Wanapa. But we thought, well, there's this nice loop here in the cemetery parking lot, maybe turn around there. So they have to look at the options. The buses may not fit there, but we're just trying to find some place to turn around so they can go back in the other direction.
Well, they could turn right at Benson and left at Adams, come around City Hall, and go up and go back.
They're looking at all kinds of options. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Patty. Did
Thank you.
All right, as
you
long
get
as
that message?
there's no other concern, we'll try and we'll talk further with Gordon, and we'll do our best. If you'd prefer not for us to utilize a stop there at the cemetery parking lot, then we're happy to avoid that if that's appropriate. All right, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Maybe we're all, and we do appreciate the cat buses and everything, because our town is limited in the ability to park. So the fact we've got the buses going and can bring potential tourists to town that are hiking and biking and using our facilities, it is helpful.
Patty, why don't you just give us a quick update on the CAT system and how well it's being utilized for transit to and from Portland?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, we saw somewhat of a decline during COVID. We actually stopped running to Portland for a couple of months, and so we've been building back ridership. We are seeing pretty steady ridership, a significant amount coming from Hood River County. So either from Hood River or Cascade Locks, we see at least 4 or 5 folks getting on the bus going to Portland each time we go. And depending on the day, we can see as many as 15 to 20 riders coming eastbound. So we feel like we're on an upward trajectory at this point. Our hope is that some of the parking mitigation measures in the gorge will help increase the number of folks that are looking to do hiking, biking, bike transit, and just visiting the small towns and communities throughout the gorge. We've had a large push on the gorge pass. We've sold about 1,000 passes over the since beginning of November, and we expect to sell at least double that by the time by midsummer. Our fare box revenue has increased, and we're receiving about 10% of our resources on that particular route from Farebox, which is a pretty high percentage for rural transit agencies. So we feel like things are going in the right direction. We still got some way to go, but it's trending up.
Thank you.
Any questions? I got one question. Makes a lot of sense. But so I've seen a few people stop off here, and I'm sure I'm getting the wrong idea with it, because they didn't look necessarily like tourists. They look, some of them look pretty rough coming off those. Do you have any issues with some of the riders that are coming out, or does it appear it's people that are coming out here to hike and do their thing in the gorge?
I would say
Is it fairly-
the overwhelming majority of folks are coming out here for work or to visit or hike or bike. We get a lot of scruffy looking folks that come off the Pacific Crest Trail during the summer and get on our buses, but almost all of them have backpacks and are going to the Walmart or one of the shops in Hood River to stock up. So we do have a couple of folks that are low income and homeless, but we find that the majority of folks that ride that are sort of homeless folks are actually locals, and most of our drivers know those folks. And we don't get a lot of folks getting on at Gateway that are coming out here to just hang out.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Patty.
All right. Have a nice evening. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll bump back up.
Yep.
Bump back up. Okay, appointments to committees.
We have 2 applications for the budget committee. And currently, we have 1 vacancy. There is potential for a second vacancy. And so I think I would request you to do is to give me a priority of who's first and who's second in line. And if that second vacancy occurs, then we can just go ahead and invite the second person.
So what I would suggest on it, because I like to have people who have been here as long as possible, that have a little bit better feel for the community. So for the first person, I would suggest Brian Hine, and then they'll go ahead and include William on in a case of another opening.
I'm sorry, I'm Brian. We've discussed this, and I would concede for Bill and be the backup, just out of knowing how much time he has put into physically investigating some of this, his concerns, our concerns.
Okay.
I'm a single father, very busy, and if that second position opens up, I would 100% be available as needed.
Okay, no problem then. So the suggestion would be William.
And thank you for coming.
It's good to see, what's happening.
Are we good with that?
Good.
I'm
With
good.
that? Okay. That's-
Thank you.
Thanks for offering. Okay. Clear County Sheriff, City. No. We need to get back up to action items. Where am I at here?
Come on.
I'm just jumping all over the place here. We got to mark things off properly.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, approve resolution number 1471, authorizing a loan from the Special Public Works Fund.
When the council approved the EDA grant, a portion of that project, the $3 million project, about $500,000 has to come from city funds. We applied for and received special public works funds for that $500,000 at a very nominal interest rate. And we held them off until we get the EDA project started. Well, they're not willing to be held off anymore. They want us to commit. So what this resolution does is commits the city to the Special Public Works Fund for $491,872. It's an interim loan, 3-year at 2.75%. At the end of that loan, it will be converted to a 10-year loan based on whatever the state sells bonds for. Generally, it's going to be about 3%, a little over 3%. But it's an interim bridge loan until the project is completed, and then it's turned into a bond levy fund loan. So what I need is your permission to have the mayor sign, approve resolution 1471, so we can sign the loan papers and get this locked in.
So can we get a motion?
This is part of the budget. It's already figured in payments.
Yeah, no, we haven't because we haven't. It'll be in the next budget. We don't have to start paying. We just have to commit to the loan.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 1471, authorizing a loan from the State of Oregon Special Public Works Fund for the hardening of the electrical infrastructure project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve resolution number 1471, authorizing loan from the Special Public Works Fund. Discussion.
Sooner than we get it done, the sooner we get extra money into the budget to be able to do things.
Well, we certainly will strengthen our power system with what this thing intends to do, and give it flexibility too, because we will be able to split two.
The city will be split into two circuits. And we
Yeah.
will be running off of two transformers. Just as an aside, I promise, if you remember, we went after for the wastewater funds, and we asked for CDBG funds for $2.5 million in the hope that we could offset the loans that we had. And it turned out that the construction costs were $2.5 million high, so we don't have to change our wastewater rates, and we're able to do the project. In this particular case, the Oregon Department of Energy has just released $12 million in funds for energy resilience projects. So I'm going to go after them for two loans. You'll read about it in my administration report. We can get them to cover the match of the solar roof project. We can get a new roof of the solar panel, and we would have really liked to have the generator and the diesel this morning, but we may be able to get that installed and a brand new roof installed without spending any city funds. So I'm working on that.
Sweet.
And then go after they have loans for resiliency projects. This is a resiliency project. If I can get them to pledge $1 million to the project, then next year when we bid it, we have that room for the prices to increase, because the price is this $3 million project, we estimated in 2018. So it's not going to end up at $3 million, and that the feds are probably not going to kick in much more. So if I can build that cushion, and again, I'm going to do it. I can't promise that it's going to happen. I will tell you this: the engineering for this $3 million project, we had done at $335,000. The engineering proposal I got this week from Burns and McDonnell was $1.3 million. So the costs are going up, and I'm going to try and figure out how to get it all done. So that's just for your information. The federal monies that the Oregon Department of Energy's got now perhaps can flow to us and help us with our project.
Well, good. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I just want to ask one question.
Yes.
Gordon, you said something about it splits the town in
In
half.
two circuits.
Okay, is that going to help us at all with power outages on being able to
Okay,
bounce back better?
Yes and no. The two circuits, the residential portion would be on one transformer, and the other transformer will be running basically the industrial part that has the higher demand. So the power outage this morning was not us. It was the Bonneville Power Administration. We lost the feeder from Hood River. And when they kicked on the feeder from the dam, it kicked off. And then it took them 2 hours to figure out why and get that back on. They still don't know why the feed from Hood River. So the power outage this morning was from the provider of our power, not the city utility.
We only got one line at a town. So from either substation, you have, well, from either one of them, there's only one, that line that comes down Forest Lane, that is the main line. That is the only line coming to feed all of.
I just thought it
all
was
of town.
odd the other day, there was, so last week, half of the town, Columbia Market stuff was out, but my house had power, so that's why I was confused why half the town can have
That's
power.
that's where the circuitry starts. That tree, there were 2 incidents. One tree fell on Sadie B, that put one house out of power. And then another tree, limb fell across the 3 lines up to Homa. That line feeds down into the, that big transformer that's out there, Gorgeous Beer. Okay, that's the main power line. Well, the feeder that went up there just put that portion of town out.
Okay,
And Sadie B, but not the rest.
thank you. Okay.
It's like, we got extension cords plugged in all over the place and somebody unplugged it.
Unplug one.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Escalation for dummies, thank you.
Well, I've learned a lot.
Okay. Approve resolution number, did we get a vote? Oh, that's right, you had a question. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, now we can
Thank
approve resolution number 1472, adopting the wildlife mitigation plan.
wildfire mitigation. We don't want to.
Wildfire, which affects wildlife. I don't have my glasses on. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 1472, adopted the 2022 wildfire mitigation plan as developed by the staff in conjunction with BKI engineering.
Got a second?
Second.
Okay, so move to second, approve resolution number 1472, adopting the wildfire mitigation plan. Discussion.
I had a couple of things that Gordon asked me on it. I still don't understand how some of my questions were Hood River County when I'm talking about City of Cascade Locks.
Okay.
So,
So
when there's a fire.
Let's talk about, your first question was, there's nothing in here about communication with the public.
Right,
Well, that's because this is a plan for the utility to implement to keep the lines clear. It's not what to do in case of a fire. It is
Okay.
what to do to prevent the fire. So
okay,
that's what this is, mitigation plan. We are what they call an annex to the Hood River County emergency plan. There's one chapter devoted to Cascade Locks, the threats that we have and the response protocols that we have. And that it covers all the communication and all the rest of those things, which was your second question. That's it's adopted as a Hood River County emergency plan because we will use the emergency center in Hood River, from Hood River County
to notify.
to do us. But that's where our reverse 911 calls would be generated from. That's where our, for example, when the 2017, when the Eagle Creek fire started, it was Hood River County was this. We were part of that, but it was all done out of the Hood River County Emergency Management for the county. So that's why I talked about the Hood River County Emergency Management. And we have a whole section there for our issues. Hood River has their own section for the Odell and Parkdale have their section on there for what their issues are. So, and it's all personalized to it. It's got our names, phone numbers, it's kept up to date on. So that there is one repository in the FEMA approved emergency management plan. And it's done by county.
Okay.
Does that help?
It helps, but I know that when we had the 2017 fire, everyone was like, how can I find out what's going on? I just think that needs to be improved.
And we agree with you, that was a great learning experience for us to do that, and that's why we've gone to Facebook. We had a committee, the council set up a committee that we talked about the publications, and that's where we got the improved newsletter, we got the improved Facebook page, the Cascade Locks Fire and EMS page. We have a ham radio in the fire department so that we can have communication that way.
And then they can relay on their fire page.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we have improved that. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's better than it was in 2017.
Kind of along the lines of that, like basic communication between the city and citizens. Like, so when we have power outages, we're aware that can we put out, we're aware that there's a power outage in this area and our approximate time to come back on. Can we do that so that people aren't wondering if we know or what we know?
If we have the information, we'd be happy to tell you. Like today, we still don't know why it went down, and we had no idea when it was going to.
Right, but to let people know that we're aware that the power went out and that we are working on it, and just some sort of update so people aren't wondering what's going on.
Our power was out too.
I know, we all use our phone.
Well, we have it on the computer, and so we couldn't turn the computers on because we didn't have power.
So quick question on that, you work on a laptop, right?
Occasionally.
I mean, one of the reasons why we use laptops in our business is for that redundancy, because if we lose power, we got a batteries.
We have battery backup and all that stuff, but it's a good point, but the gal that does our Facebook page didn't get here till
That's
noon.
what's upsetting a lot of people though, is there's lack of communication. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the problem.
Well, we
And
got-
without communication, people assume things. And then it snowballs and people get upset. Communication is like super important.
Okay, thank you.
I would just say with that though, that it can also snowball even with the communication, because the problem with a power outage is they really can't tell you when that power outage is gonna be fixed. And if they start giving you times when you think, when you believe it's gonna be fixed, and it doesn't happen at that time, they're gonna start hearing from it big time. I mean, everybody's gonna start calling.
But with this one, since it was Bonneville Power, I'll say, Bonneville Power fixes it, we'll not.
Come out and say it. Yeah.
It's out of our hands.
I think if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is just sharing what we do know.
Right.
Not asking to make any projections or guesses, just sharing what information.
And what platform?
I think Facebook would probably be the best. I could be wrong. I don't know. When you guys come up and talk, maybe you can let us know how we want communication. But I really think that's our huge problem. I think it's been a huge problem for a long time. Because we can't just get on social media and start telling you guys what's going on, because that puts us in a very tight spot with
Public records.
public records, and that just, it makes us liable. We can get sued for saying something wrong or doing something, even
Facebook
with
may
good
not-
intentions.
Potentially people though could be locked out of Facebook, they could be Facebook jail and not be able to access that information either, so.
And if they're not following us, so
Right,
It's-
what about having an outgoing phone number where people could call in and have like an outgoing message?
We have an emergency phone, and we spent the morning answering. In fact, I was on the phone talking to a gentleman who said, should I set up my generator? And I said, we don't know when the power is going to be on. And as I'm talking to him, the power comes on. There you go, sir. Can I do it any better?
And I guess I'm not suggesting actually a phone to actually have a monitor, it's just an outgoing message, you call in, and you give an update.
We'll have to look at that. We only have one phone line.
With a voice, I've done it,
Well,
totally free.
we'll have to look at that. That's a great suggestion.
Come
Just as a thought.
in and show
Happy to. Just an idea, 'cause I mean, Facebook, I think is a great resource for people that can use it, but not everybody's on Facebook for.
And like today, the internet was down. Internet was down in
That's
5 counties all around Oregon and Southwest Washington. So,
Well, one of the things we can tell the citizens right off the bat here is let them know if your power goes out, it just flat out is gonna be a while. If it happens, if it's an issue with us. Because I grew up here with a line company that all lived here. And they could, as soon as it went out, they knew it was out, they were out there getting on. We don't have a line company right now, so it's, anything goes out here right now, it's very possible we're asking for a mutual aid or we're asking for a contractor to come in, so anything happens in our system right now, you're probably looking at a minimum, at least a couple hours before somebody may even be on it. So that's at least something we can tell the citizens that's what we're stuck with right now from the power side is you're going to be, if it happens in our system, there's a good chance that maybe a couple hours before it even gets started. And then that gives us plenty of time to you've already got a 2-hour buffer. And that gives us time to be able to start communicating. To get something together and be able to
We do
communicate.
have the emergency line and there's potential of putting an answer message on the emergency line. But we need people to call in because sometimes we don't know the extent of the power. And that's why they need to call into the emergency line for power outage. So it works both ways and both information going both ways is helpful. So
But if it stops 5 people from calling you, seeing, we're aware of the problem, instead of them on this road in this area, they won't be calling and bothering you guys or, having, not bothering, but constantly calling. They'd already see a list, they're aware.
I think I like the idea of the phone, kind of like when you call into PG&E, they say if you're in the Selwood district with a block, blah, 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 we're aware of the outage. So
They do
then,
that in Gresham.
right, and if you're out of that area, then they have an opportunity to leave a voicemail to say, no, I'm on the south side. So,
Powers up.
right.
we'll take a look at that. And my electric crew can't do it, so I got to do it from office staff because my electric crew's out dealing with the issue. So we'll have to figure out how to get that done.
But we should at least let them know that if something goes out, you're probably gonna be looking at a minimum of a couple hours if it's an issue with us. So at least they know that.
I've lived like all over this country. I'm an Army brat and I lived in a lot of places in Gresham. This is the least amount of power outages I've ever lived.
I know, we're good,
This is
yeah.
the least amount, the shortest time. I know it happens, but there's some long ones.
Well, it's a small system. But our problem right now, our Achilles heel right now, is we don't have the line staff to go out and get after it. So that is going to delay any issue that does happen. But it is a pretty small system. Brideville gets beat up more than we do because they're.
And they all have generators down there. They all bring us cinnamon rolls.
Well, it's harder to. There's a lot of trees that can hit things, but the part of what this thing's about here is to clear things as well as you can, and that's part of our responsibility. Now, once you pass this thing, if you pass this thing, that is our responsibility to make sure that we're following through on what's in this document. Because following through on it is making sure that we're keeping things clean. We got a program going, we got processes going. And that's up to the council to make sure that staff is staying on top of those things. Because I look at this thing as a really good document. I think they put together a really good document. But a document is only as good as you're following through on. So I think part of our job is to make sure that happens. Other questions here or comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay. Okay, appearances of interested citizens.
Brian, hi.
Thank you.
So, if you guys don't mind, I'll start off with what you were just talking about. Being a citizen, I think it would be a great idea to be able to have a phone line where I know no one is going to answer, but I will get some type of we have no idea when the power will be back on. Sorry about tomorrow. Like, that's better than nothing. But there will be people that have Facebook. Wi-Fi can be out. I have 4G, I have 5G. 5G can go out, that's fine, I understand. Like there will be technical difficulties that at some point, there might not be able to be, any update. That might be a thing. Any type of communication is better. I don't want to be an annoying citizen being like, I called and someone told me the power will be back on in 30 minutes. I have this plan, but why isn't it back on? So if there's a way to just completely eliminate us citizenship talking to anybody to find out, that's just going to save everybody time. Yourselves, and I would think.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you appreciate a phone call from a reverse 911 territory that goes to everybody in the territory? Where we call out, tell people?
I'm not going to answer a phone call likely from an unknown number or something like that. I mean, that's me personally.
Well, they would leave a message.
I also am bad at checking my messages. So I think it's geared more towards someone that's like, well, it's really more towards that. What's that?
What about a text blast?
That might be.
I was gonna say text.
Well, that
People
reverse
are-
911 does that. As you register for reverse 911, you tell it how you want your
You don't
communication.
want to be,
Yeah.
I think you could even encompass, any type of fire or any type of emergency.
Yes, we use that. We have used that in the
And
past.
I haven't signed up for that. But I think just on that topic, any type of, Facebook is something, multiple avenues that you can cover that without, taking up someone's time who doesn't know that, which we all know is going to be the case. The main reason I think most of us are here is because of the security of the town. I am someone that has been a victim of a break-in into my house a couple of years ago now, and I filed a report. They came out and told me there was nothing they could do, ask around, all that kind of stuff. I live over on Moody, right by the apartment complex there. They told me to check in about the cameras of the apartment complex. So I talked to them and they told me that without a warrant, they would not allow me to view the footage. And the police department told me that, it's a moot point. They're not gonna do anything. At the end of the day, nothing came up. We've since had vehicles broken into in my driveway, and we do have a few vehicles. We keep them clean, all of the protocol that we can put into place as citizens, like, what to do to not get, be a victim, not to appeal to whoever's going to break in. Again, at the end of the day, if someone wants to take a joyride, if they want to, I've had my roommate's car got broken into with nothing. They filled with some change, and that's it. Didn't take it out, but it's at the end of the day, if someone wants to break into something, I think they're going to. We've taken precautions, and I think most people that have lived here for a while do. And I am not aware of what our budget currently is or what our deal with Hood River is for the security they provide us. I heard, an amazing question is what would it take to get a full-time, deputy here? Instead of just someone coming from them necessarily, which I know would still come from them, but I would think that under our current agreement with them, either we pay less and then pay for a deputy on top of that, otherwise it should just be all encompassed. I don't understand why they would want to charge us on top of what we're already getting if we're not getting the right services. And then if they do provide us with the deputy, then I would understand for, whatever our budget toward them is. It just seems like it might be at a point where with our citizenship having increased over the past few years, it might be at that point where what does it take to get someone out here, and I can appreciate them. And I know that they're doing their rounds. I do see them drive up my road. I'll also say that at the end of the day, I don't know that matters that much. We found mattresses up under the bridge up there, like, where the PCT trail starts. So I don't feel safe in my home. It's been broken into. I have a son, a 4-year-old son, that when I take him outside, toward the end of the evening, I see some shady characters. Not everybody is worth making a phone call on. Not everybody has broken the law just walking by my house, and I understand that. But I've seen a massive increase, over the past couple of years, and I understand times are hard on everybody, especially people who don't have somewhere to call home. I would just like to see, or, understand more of what it would take to get permanent presence out here versus what we are already paying for to the police department of Hood River versus what we are getting back. And I'm just not aware of what those numbers are or what we can afford. So I would hope that it would be.
Would you like me to just respond briefly?
Sure.
We currently pay this year $112,000 for a deputy to be in town a minimum 27 hours a week. We also get, because of we pay county property taxes, they will call other deputies in to respond if they need help. As the sheriff said, it would be about $135,000 for a separate deputy, a second deputy. Actually, the price is going up in the next budget year, it'd be $120,000. And that $135,000 is more than that because you have to have more equipment in order to cover that. To have our own 24-hour, 24/7 deputy, you probably have to multiply that times 5 because you need a sergeant and at least a sergeant and 3 deputies to do the 24/7, but then they get to take time off. And so if you want us, if we were staffing our own police department with the chief, sergeant and 3 deputies, you're talking about $1.2 million a year. Just we don't have that kind of money.
So, and I'm just trying to gauge
Yeah, but
what we
that's-
do have the money for.
Yeah.
And, if we can work out a better deal with the.
We look every year to see if we can hire a second deputy, because you can't hire them in increments. It's either all or nothing. We just don't have the money in our general fund to do that at this point.
Can I ask, is that a big concern for this committee? Is that something that you
It's
guys?
a
would
huge
want to
concern, and it's always been.
That's why the sheriff was here.
do? I know.
They asked him to come in.
Can I just clarify, the 27 hours a week, that's full time, because the other 13 are free. Is that right?
Yes.
That's correct. So that is one deputy for full time, 40 hours.
But he does his reports back in the office. That includes that.
And that includes
13
that
hours.
time, so that's part of that 13 hours.
Right. So I know that it's been a big concern for the city council. Mayor Bobby Walker, he had tasked all of us to try and come up. We've all been racking our brains very much so. So it's like, do we raise, do we charge an extra fee on, but that had to go to the voters.
Right.
So, but we're not putting anything out. We're trying to come up. We're working really hard, coming up with cameras, but going to meetings. And so we are very, very concerned about it.
I'm probably.
Butch.
Another thing I did, I contacted the guy that owns the Hood River security service. And this is an armed security service. They can't do certain things deputies can, but they can provide us with 8 hours of coverage at night. And their cost would be $102,200 for 8 hours a night, 365 days a year. That's an option we can look at, and maybe to mitigate the price on that, we can approach the port to include them to see if they would want to share and having this security officer patrol their property too. This is just something that I did today, so I can bring to the night some more. I contacted the police chief of Hines, Oregon, because Hines is the same size as we are, but they have a police force. And I wanted to see where they got their money. They have a tax on their water. That I don't think we want that. Or you would want that now, more taxes. So we are looking at a lot of different options, and I just got another option for us to consider. So
Essentially, I was looking at the same things, being like, what size our town is, how much it would cost to get, I knew immediately we can't afford our own station. That's not an option. But, there is private security, and, we could potentially talk to Hood River about our current deal versus supplementing with private security, or, I wanted to see what you guys were currently discussing, and we'll hope to see, maybe we can get some type of alternate solution. I'm all for the neighborhood watch. I know the guys behind me are. I'm not looking to take time away from my family to make sure our community is necessarily safe, but I will. Especially when, my house is up on the west side of town, and for a while we've been like the last one over there at night. We see everything that happens at night to the point where I'm here now, and so I hear, the things that we can potentially do. I have no idea. I'm sure no one here has any type of idea on a timeline on things. It's nice to hear that we're aware of this, and, that's all I basically have to say. And I'm hopeful that we can feel a little more secure.
Okay, thank you. And I thought that, and I assume somebody else wants to,
Yeah. I'd be
Okay, yeah.
happy to see it.
come on up.
As he's gonna, if the council would like, I can get this guy from Big River Security Service to come and give you a presentation. If you'd like to hear from him.
What's the name of the company that does that?
Well, he's called Big River Security Service.
I mean, I just want to make a point here, though. This is the time for citizens to get a chance to talk to us, but we don't want to get big discussions going. Discussion happens later. What we're trying to find out is somebody comes in and wants to have a quick little talk with us, what we use this time for. But I think we're all on board where we're coming for, but it's your turn.
Yeah, I was thinking of a way that we might be able to provide some additional funding would be like a way to like put a tax on tourism a bit more on when the summertime comes. Like we used to have like that Sternwheeler days, we could have more events that include the port that would attract more people, or like be more a part of the Blues and Brews in Stevenson with the shuttle bus coming over here to have more event action for weekends like that. That could potentially help the community, like maybe even parking meters downtown to kind of help prevent people from leaving their cars there at night, or semi trucks parked downtown all night. All those things I feel could be definitely looked into.
Your name, sir?
My name is Casey Bennett, and I live here in Cascade Locks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, come on. Give us your name too.
My name is Ken Sewell. So the last 4 or 5 months, I think maybe 6 months, I've been doing the neighborhood watch quite often. A lot of reasons is because our world's changing. There's all kinds of stuff coming out. I really think if we don't get a handle on this soon, we're gonna have Wood Portland here, if we haven't seen it already. I'm willing to dedicate, put my services out there, because like I've been doing now, I have Sunday, Mondays, and Tuesdays off. I usually go out on Saturday nights. I go out and go around quite a bit. Casey knows I go out quite a bit. But I'm more than happy to do that if that's what it takes to get some of this resolved, or at least slow down. I think if we get, and I could be wrong, but I think if we get a few of these guys, locked up or something, maybe that'll put the word out to the other ones, hey, don't mess with Cascade Locks. But we just gotta get them first. So I really think changing the scenario, putting those signs up, that might waken what they might look up and go, oh, different, something's different here. Maybe some of the heavier hearted areas that have been hit, light those up a little bit more if we put some more lights out or something. I do know that ADT right now, for anyone who's interested in security cameras, they'll come in your home. It's at $48 a month, I think is what it is, but you have to have internet. And they'll give you like 2 or 3 cameras, and then if you have a smartphone, it'll alert your phone when there's somebody in your property. Doesn't matter where you're at, which is really cool. Like the sheriff said, there are other cameras that you can get. Game cameras are really nice to have. Camouflage, you can set them out all kinds of places. A lot of them will do the video, some just actually take pictures. But like I said, I'm concerned. A couple nights ago, I seen a couple of things from about 12:15 to about 12:45. there's some illegal drug trafficking over here by the post office. That's where I got that one guy who said, hey, yeah, get out of the bathroom. You don't belong here. And those, as soon as those people saw me pull in, of course, they take off. But like I said, I'm more than happy to come on out, and I'll keep doing it till we get somebody else.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate it.
Be careful, please. Don't put yourself in harm's way.
Yes.
That's right. Don't put yourself in harm's
Compare
way.
Vehicles too, to make sure
Okay.
they're watching each other.
What's that?
Who's that guy in the truck, you know?
That's just funny because I actually have 4 different vehicles. I have 4 different vehicles I can use. And my Jeep, I got 6 KC lights on it. The other night, I lit those guys up and I said, out of here, you guys don't belong here. The funny thing is they have no license plates, front or rear.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they're getting in here. I don't know if they're stealing cars and dropping them off. But I mean, I will light them up and then I have this speed dial 911 real quick.
Thanks, Bill. Moffat, I live here in Cascade Locks. I spoke earlier to Sheriff English. I just kind of want to reiterate what I said. Without somebody to enforce any kind of consequence, this entire conversation is a bunch of crap. If we don't get somebody to say, you know what, we're gonna look out for Cascade Locks. If they don't want that behavior in their town and it's illegal, we're gonna prosecute that for them. But what is that gonna look like? Well, truth is, you probably got a smack on the hand and sent to a rehab unit that's not gonna do them any good. He doesn't have any money to pay fines. So again, where are we left with all this? Who's gonna help us get to the next level? Who's gonna take us to the next step to say, we're not gonna take this anymore? Somebody's got to, whether it's a district attorney, whether it's a sheriff, whether it's the mayor, the city administrator, somebody has got to say, enough's enough. This is not what our little town was about. I'm sure 50 years ago at Cascade Locks, this was unheard of behavior. Now it's the norm. What happened? Somebody lose interest in their town? Somebody not care? Somebody not get stolen from and it doesn't bother them yet? I'm not sure, but it's an issue. And I'm sorry I get emotional. I work too doggone hard for somebody else to take from me. Every one of you that has a job, you just put a $100 bill behind your gas cap at night. It's cheaper. This has got to stop. We've got to do something. Even if there's no consequences for the negative behavior, which we know there probably isn't, I think we're pretty clear about that, then we should have increased patrols. Right? The security guy. The Hood River Sheriff's Department, I've been in that house 18 months and I've seen them twice at the end of Reckle Street, and that's on a Saturday afternoon. Well, thanks for all your interest at the end of our street. The end of the street looks like a junkyard because my 2 neighbors at the end of the street are feuding over where they can park in front of their house. He's got this monster boat parked right on the road and nobody cares. Nobody cares. Well, that's my mama's place. I can park it there. You cannot, man. But there's no enforcement. There's nothing. My property value is going down because they want to play Sanford and Son with each other. How does that work? Across from Miss Farrell's house, they should just take a bulldozer to the place and push it right off the end. He's burying tires in the back and digging the basement by hand and I think those are ways to draw money as well. Towards some of these little codes. Is that house habitable to live in? You can look at it and see probably not. It wouldn't take much. Those are just things that I think that as a community we could all do together, right? See something, say something. I work for a pretty big company and that's one of the things we live by. Keep people safe. My job is to keep people safe in their job. You see something, say something. Well, if I did that all night long, I'd be on the phone constantly with Hood River Police. I live at the end of a dead end road. Why are people walking up and down that cliff at 3 in the morning? They're up to no good. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that out. I would like to see better. And I think everybody in this town would like to see better. I'm not saying nobody's doing what they can or what they can't do, but I think we can all do better as a community. This isn't a one-man show. Not one person is to blame for all of what this is. This is a community event, and I think it takes a community to fix it. With that, I'm gonna shut up.
Thank you.
Thanks for your input. Thanks for your input. Anyone else? I would just say it doesn't go on deaf ears. The council is concerned, but it also isn't easy. But it doesn't mean the council is going to try to work their way through this. Every meeting I've been to with them, or this question has been brought up at every meeting and the council's. That's why the sheriff was here. So it's not going on deaf ears. They're going to do the best they can here. But all I would say too is, and this, you're right, in the world we're in right now, some of these people just do not care, and it's hard, it's difficult. Because we got to play by we are forced to play by a certain set of rules, and some people are not forced to play by a certain set of rules.
Some aspects.
Yeah. Anyway.
And I know we've, as a city council, we've talked about code enforcement. So that's on our radar as well. So.
Okay.
I'm gonna take a look at the vote. See if I can't get it.
Maybe the 2 blazers they got there.
Oh,
The one explorer she got there has been hit so many times, the action.
Yeah, look at that too.
And the junk pop up that they're just throwing garbage into. I can make a list.
Oh, believe me, I have a list.
He deals with this, and he has dealt with it, and it has become at times very difficult. But Gordon, sometimes things take time. It's difficult when somebody doesn't want to cooperate. It is not easy.
And the problem we're having now, thanks to the Ninth Circuit Court, anything that could potentially be someone's home, I can't move, can't tow it, because we don't provide a place for it to go. I can't get anybody to tow it anyway.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean you can't provide a place for it to go?
Say a motorhome.
The Ninth Circuit Court says you cannot enforce, homelessness is not a crime. And you cannot cause it to be a crime by taking their home and putting it in storage and they get it back. That's penalizing them for being houseless, homeless. Because they got to pay $75 a night for storage or the towing fee or whatever it is. We can't do that anymore in the Ninth Circuit. You can do it in Utah, but you can't do it here. We can only tow basically cars because they have some value, even if it's scrap. And I've been fairly successful in getting those on cars. Boats are a different story.
Like, what about the
Unlicensed,
boat?
unregistered, it doesn't matter.
It does not matter. We're handicapped by the laws that we have to live under.
Yeah.
But most of the time, those people don't. I mean, I post bright yellow signs on the car that says you've got 72 hours. I have to give a due process. You've got 72 hours to move the car, and you have to move every car that's parked on the street every 2 days, at least 200 feet. You know, how do I know? Did that move last night? I don't know.
A simple piece of chalk.
I can't, that is illegal. I can't do that anymore. I cannot mark somebody's property.
Well, I can tell you, I took pictures of it last summer. The boat is still there with the same jack underneath.
Yeah, that's what I can go look at because it's been there for longer.
In fact, the Hood River County Sheriff Department talked to him about it. Said something funny about this boat. Well, it wasn't funny enough to him to care enough about it to tell him to get the check out.
Let me go see what.
Thank you.
Homelessness illegal in other?
The city of Boise, fined people for sleeping on the street, for doing all the other kinds of stuff that they do, getting rid of their garbage. And 9 of those people that were, 8 or 9 of those people that were fined by the city of Boise formed a class action lawsuit and sued the city of Boise. It went all the way up to the Ninth Circuit Court. The Ninth Circuit Court said, you cannot make them move unless you have some place for them to move to. And so that's what we're living under. And like Portland's trying to do homeless shelters. And Portland's got 40,000 homeless people. You can't build enough shelters to that. I think it's only 7,000, but I like to exaggerate. We do not have the resources because if you put a park for them to put their homeless, their RVs, for example, then you have to staff it with all the services that they might need, mental health services. You have to put sewers connections in there. You have to provide all of this stuff that we don't have the ability to do. And so I can't force somebody not to live on the street. Thanks.
It is definitely something that's regional, you know, like you drive around the country and you look at.
Oh,
other
it's all
areas
over the
and
world.
But no, what I'm saying is it's not, you know, Idaho, you know, there are definitely other parts of the country where you just do not see the homelessness, you know.
The Idaho's in the 10th Circuit.
I see, so that's.
We're in the 9th.
A lot of it is Portland's a sanctuary city. So people from all over the country get bused to Portland. Because it's a
From
sanctuary.
Idaho.
From everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, from everywhere.
What's going on in Seattle? I mean, Portland used to be a beautiful town.
Right.
Seattle used to be a beautiful place. And it's
Right.
just getting trashed. And I think that's what you're bringing up is you don't want to see that happening.
I don't think any of us do. I think that's why we're all here.
We're kind of lucky.
An act of desperation, you know?
We're kind of lucky. We get 80 inches of rain a year. That deters a lot of people from coming, number one. And number two, we don't have services here. At least they have services on the river. They have services, mental health services, medical services in Portland. And because we don't have those services, we don't have a high incidence of houselessness.
It's not a desirable thing.
Sustaining homelessness. I'll settle for that. You don't have a high concentration of sustained homelessness.
They keep.
Because I mean, last summer, let's face it, last winter, that dude parked out in front of that little hot dog stand the entire winter in that crappy old RV, leaking all over the place. Remember that? He'd move another
Well,
spot.
that was fun. That was a lot of work. And
No, and I know,
again,
that's what
we
I
didn't
mean.
throw our hands up. We kept, yeah, they kept on as best they could. But yeah, they're,
No, the sad thing about that was he found a job in Bedford. And yes, but because he was under parole and probation in Hood River County would not move the jurisdiction to Jackson County, so he could go down there and work and be productive. So they forced him to stay here. Well, he got arrested again and thrown in jail.
okay.
Gordon's really responsive. I mean, I'd call him Gordon. He's like, I know, I'll go talk to him. And then they moved the 200 feet and then, but he was always really, really responsive. I will say that.
Sometimes I'm successful.
He's like, I know.
Okay, it's city administrator's report.
Thank you. It's going to be short. The OEM mitigation fund that we talked about before we are the top recipient to go to the next step. It's a very complicated federal application. And I'm looking for somebody to help me to fill it out. But the next day after I gave you that report is when I got the notice from the Oregon Department of Energy that says they have monies for resiliency projects. And that is a resiliency project to give us power so that we can have power. So we're going to go after that to cover the match money. On the Morgan Municipal Electric Utilities Board meeting is this Thursday in Monmouth. This is assuming that you guys find my replacement. This will be my last board meeting, and I've been on that board for 9.5 years, served as president for 1 year, I guess. But I'll be out of town on Thursday. We'll be coming back for the planning commission meeting Thursday night. And then Butch and I are going next week to Hermiston for the League of Oregon Cities Spring Conference. And I'm sure Butch is going to ask a bunch of questions of all those guys out there.
Definitely gonna be talking up the other guys about security.
Yeah. And that's, the city council meetings. This will be the last time, cross my fingers, hope to die, that we'll be using these cameras and this sound system. We're buying an owl that sits in the middle of the room and has cameras 360 degrees, microphones 360 degrees, and will focus on you when you speak. And so everybody can see everybody else, and it'll all be up on the TV so that the people who are zooming in, and it's all camera, microphone, all in one, and we just plug it into the computer. So we'll see if it works, but that should improve our lag problem, and it should improve our very audio problems. And so it's the next step in technology. It only cost us $1,200.
How much?
$1,200.
That's not bad. Well,
Microphones?
yeah, well, I know, we've been spending the money on all this stuff for years.
Yeah. So we'll see if it works. But anyway, and one final thing, thank you all for filling out your statement of economic interest. This is the first year in the 9 years I've been here that we've had 100% compliance prior to the deadline.
That's not, I didn't do mine.
Uh-oh.
You're
Thanks,
not
Andy.
listed.
Mine is on the 15th.
Okay, but we looked at the Ethics Commission website and they didn't flag you. So,
Oh, cool. I hate doing those.
but it's required.
I'll still do it.
Maybe
anyway,
somebody did it
because
for you.
Maybe somebody-
If
Oh, I know, I don't, it's stress.
you don't want to.
I don't work here anymore.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, mayor and city council comments. How would you, Catherine, go around the horn?
All right, well, first of all, thank you to the city staff and everything for putting together all the packets. I always appreciate that. Thank you to Sheriff English and Deputy Brown for coming, and we had all asked for them to come, and because it is a big concern, the safety of all the citizens of Cascade Locks. So we're working towards it. It's not going to be fast, but we're working hopefully towards a solution. Thank you to it's really good to see citizens so many times in meetings, there isn't anybody. So I really, really appreciate everyone coming, and I value what your thoughts and your ideas. And so I encourage you to come to meetings if you ever have another question. And then we are working on code enforcement. That has been a topic as well. So, but we'll dive deeper into that hopefully soon. But anyway, that's it.
Just echoing what she said, I'm very happy that we have citizens that have come forward. I follow the Facebook comments a lot, and that was one reason why I had asked for Sheriff English to come and be here. So thank you for coming. And then I guess I'll look into, and I talked to you separately about that next door app that he was talking about. I don't know how we would go about doing that.
I think people just sign up for it. So the more citizens that know about it, the more
Right.
people sign up.
So maybe we could do a post.
If you need a meeting spot, I have one.
All right.
Go for neighborhood watch.
Church. Free church.
Excellent, okay. Yeah, I think that's what I have.
Brenda.
Yeah, I want to thank Sheriff English too, and Patty from CAT for coming, and to the citizens, because safety is important. Not only the speeding cars and the safety, I have made a pact of myself in my own house that if I hear a noise that I actually get up. That means if I'm in the bed and I hear it, I actually get up and go look. That way, if there is something, at least they know people are watching. So, I can't like be on any committee or anything, but I definitely would support like any kind of neighborhood watch or whatever, and be willing to participate however. Also, I would like to know what our status on Dry Creek is.
Engineers completing the engineering, and we're gonna hopefully go out to bid in the month of May.
The month of May. And thanks staff for getting the packets together and everything. And then I do agree that we need to have the code enforcement. I think there's a lot of places in town that not only bring down property values, but are just horrendous. I live across the street from one. And I had not walked on my sidewalk in a couple of years to where I'm usually driving down my sidewalk, so I don't see things that I see when I walk. And what a sight. I took one picture, and it only needs one picture to explain all of it. And I don't know, I know people were actively working on improving the property, and then they got in trouble for no permits, and now we're just stopping. And I think I would like to see the citizens in Cascade Locks, homeowners, renters, whatever, take pride in ownership. Like, you know, it helps. Whenever you have that kind of stuff, I guess there was squatters in the place across the street from my house a month ago. So it is happening, you know, and there's several houses that you wonder what's going on. These people have, the owners happen to come there and realize they had somebody living in their house. So that's my 2 cents on that. And then also to remind everybody that the citywide garage sales are going to be April 22nd through 24th. The citizens that want to participate and be on the map and have a flag put in their yard need to have their information in the box here at City Hall by the 15th at 5 p.m. That way we have time to get everybody on the map and get everything published and all that stuff. That covers all the advertising and everything. So far, I believe we have 26 people signed up for garage sale weekend.
Where's the box at?
It's right out front here. Yeah, right out front. There's a form and some envelopes.
I was looking.
Yeah. And that's really all I have. Thank you, guys.
I'll probably get emotional, but I ran for city council because of all of the problems that you guys are describing. I lived on where the regulator, I have that regulator, right? Up on.
Yeah.
I lived up, I was house sitting up there for a whole winter. I mean, you guys probably know how bad that was. And I was serious about wanting to make a difference for the city. Like, we care. This is not fun. Being on city council isn't, for me, it's not fun. I get extreme anxiety. I hate being in front of people. But I felt it was important enough to step up and do something. Nobody comes to meetings. I'm so glad you guys are here. Nobody ever comes to meetings. People get really upset outside of meetings. They say a lot of things. When you come to meetings, you might understand more. If things get explained, you just feel like you understand what's going on a little bit better. I mean, we really do care. We're trying to find ways, and I really want more people involved. And the more people that come, the better. And it's just, it's hard to try to do the right thing when your hands are tied a lot of it. And being able to speak up and say a lot of stuff where we can't always do that. We can't always communicate the way that we want to. The situation absolutely is horrible. And I think it can be fixed, but we all have to do it. And there's not a lot of money to do this stuff. We're a very small town, we're a small city, and I mean, I think it's sadly, I mean, I wish we had all the money to do it. But we're gonna have to do it ourselves, I think, a big part of it. And we're not prosecutors, we can't hold people accountable for what they've done, and I think that there's a serious problem with holding people accountable for actions. I mean, I had a friend who was almost killed out at Wyatt by her husband, and he went to court today and got 20 days in jail. Nobody's being held accountable for anything, and I agree, but we can't be the ones that do that. And squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you see something that's not right, call non-emergency. That way they will come out.
First, I like always thank staff for all the hard work preparing the materials we need. And I'd like to thank Brian and Casey and Phil for being here and presenting your thoughts to us. That's important for us because we need to hear from you. And we do work hard at trying to act on this stuff. The police department, that was one of my main focuses when I came in. And I'm still working, trying to find different ideas for it. That's why the security service, I talked to that guy. Going to this conference, I'll be able to sit down and talk with some other counselors and mayors from other cities and find out what's going on there and how they're coping with these things. And I'm not spending your money going either because I got a grant from LOC to pay for it. So we're looking out for your money too. Also, things coming up. Easter egg hunt this Saturday. For everybody to go attend to and enjoy watching the kids get it. You get the Easter egg stuff. Easter Sunday at 9 o'clock, there is a Easter service in the pavilion put on by the Bible Fellowship, Cascade Locks Community Church with a brunch to follow, and it starts at 9. Brunch will be at 10. So, and I still didn't get an answer from you guys. Do you want me to bring this back on Hood River Security to do a presentation? You want to hear from him, or are we?
Personally, I'd love to pursue every possible avenue.
It's always open to it. I'm open to a presentation. And
No. Well, then I'll contact him tomorrow. I'll arrange to come to the council meeting with Beyond and do a presentation. And wastewater plant. I had a note in here. On that one, there was a about the UV lights.
Yes.
Bank A, power distribution center is operational, but UV modules are not functional. $8,000 to repair has not been approved by the city. Are we gonna fix these, or is this?
That's part of the whole wastewater project.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I didn't want to spend $8,000 just to get it replaced again. You know.
That was my question. I saw that in there, so.
It helps, but we don't actually discharge a lot out to the river. Most of our discharge goes to the river for further processing.
Okay. That's all I got.
I think first and foremost, I want to thank the staff. You got all the packets. The meeting, definitely want to say a good thing to Sheriff English and Deputy Brown for coming in to present this evening. This has been a topic of conversation on every single city council meeting inside the city council. This is one issue, even if every 2 weeks, that's something else to talk about. And it's a tough problem to solve just because of all the things that you heard us talking about tonight. And it's not something that's just isolated to Cascade Locks. It's a problem with a lot of people. really appreciate all of you coming to see me to share your thoughts on this, and what you're seeing and experiencing and doing. It's much appreciated. And as Jill said, the community involvement, having y'all be a part of this meeting. I think Aaron Cramlett said it really well when we were chatting after one of our meetings. He said, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I definitely feel the same way that, I don't serve on this community here, on this committee, for the city council for any sort of personal agenda. I'm here because I want to be a voice for the citizens that maybe aren't here at this meeting. And so things that I bring to the meeting are those issues that people are bringing to me. So I think that that's more involvement for better. Appreciate you guys. If there's anything I can do to help, if the Google Voice sounds like something that I need something to move forward with, I saw you writing that down. But if it is something you need help setting up, please reach out for it, and I'm happy to help with that. And then the quiet zone, Union Pacific, I saw, what was the 3674? What are you paying no money for?
When you get Union Pacific to come out and take a look at your situation, you have to pay them to come. And that was to have them, the train horn quiet zone engineers, to come to tell us we need more signalization worth $225,000. And if we want it, this is, I'm looking for the money. We have $150,000 reserved in the street fund to help pay for this. We got a $100,000 grant from Small City Allotment. That's part of the 150. We got 200,000 from ODOT Rail, and what we have to do is change the profile. And now we have to widen the crossing a couple of feet. We were prepared to do all of that. And then when these engineers came, said, well, back when you built Shahala in 2005, you should have put this signalization in for the road that was coming down. Okay, so now they're telling us you have to put that new signals in. And because there's more signals there, you have to have a new signal camera. It's going to cost you another $250,000. So what I'm going to try to do is at least get the profiling done and the crossing widened. When that's done, then it's a private crossing right now. The port owns the easement. But we have so many businesses, our wastewater plant, our water wells down there, we have businesses down there. It needs to be a public crossing, which means the city would maintain it. And so once we get that done, then we have to sign, the easement will be granted to us to cross by Union Pacific Railroad. And then we have to pay for the maintenance of that crossing every year, which is estimated between $17,000 and $20,000 a year. If we get the signalization done, if we find the money to do the signalization, then we can use Herman Creek Lane and Cramlett Way crossing, which requires another $25,000 to $50,000 of work as the ends of our train horn quiet zone. And what that means is for a quarter mile on the other side in each direction, they will not blow their horns at that crossing because there's adequate signalization, there's adequate channelization, and the trains feel safer. They will always blow their horns if they feel unsafe. And then that would give the only crossing then that would not be included in the train horn quiet zone is Gravel Pit Road. Bob Sorick, who owned Bear Mountain Wood Products, sold that to Magnetics, and he is purchasing the Hood River Sand and Gravel property, 42 acres, and wants to develop that. If he develops that property, he's going to have to do some work on that crossing in order to make it public. It's private crossing right now. To make it a public crossing, and then we can stretch the quiet zone from Gravel Pit Road to Cramlett Way, and they won't blow that's the only at-grade crossings inside the city limits, so they won't blow their horns unless there's a safety issue. I don't know if that answered your question. It's just telling you, I've been working on this
9 years?
Lots of years.
about 9 years.
Yeah.
And each time the Union Pacific comes, they're throwing in another one. Because they don't want to mess with it. And I'm I was supposed to meet with the Oregon, UP representative for Oregon today at noon. He was gonna come out, we were gonna visit the site. Because I'm so frustrated, every time they come out, they throw another roadblock in the way, and they delay. I mean, I've had about 3 times, we had to sign a contract that said worth $25,000 so that they would come out and take a look at the situation. And every time they come out, it runs about $3,000. That's what that cost was. So they can say, oh, well, you can do this and you can do that. And then they change their minds. And then
Yeah, so I appreciate, you did answer my question and then a lot more. So
Okay.
thank you for that. And then the last meeting when we were talking, and this issue, the reason why I keep bringing it up is because maybe it's where we live. Kathy, I don't know if it comes up with every single neighbor you talk with, but every time I'm talking with one of our neighbors, they're asking about this. And so that's why. And you're in the same neighborhood. So
I am in the same neighborhood, but I love trains.
I get asked all
I tell people
the
to put
time.
on the train, but I get passed by the train.
My wife, well, during the summer when it was open, we hear a train horn, my wife goes, okay, which side of the river is that and which direction is it going? It's just, I love trains. I don't mind. But it's just it's a huge issue.
Last city council meeting, when we were talking about this, you said that there's a chance to go through all the hoops and that would be approved.
That's correct.
Now, when I read through the documentation about, what designates something a quiet zone, it seems like there's a point system that's scoring, and it's either you are or you're not. It seemed like it was very clear.
Right. But the railroad has to agree. And if the railroad doesn't want to do it, the Federal Railway Administration is not going to tell them to do it.
Who does the scoring though? I mean,
Federal Railway Administration.
So if they score it and it passes at the 35 points or whatever it is, I mean, it would just be.
Then we'll be happy, and we can do that. But Union Pacific has to accept it. What happens is, although it's a quiet zone, but if the engineer thinks his engine is threatened in any way, his train is threatened in any way, he's going to blow that one. And that's how they get around it. Well, I saw an animal or whatever. I didn't get this in writing, but Union Pacific said if we got this train horn quiet zone for Cramble Way to Herman Creek Lane to Cramble Way, that they would include on their own the Gravel Pit Road, because it's in his signalized. Not very much would have to happen on that. But now that there's going to be development on the north side of the railroad, that's off the table because it's no longer going to be private, it's going to have to become public, because you're going to have access to it. So it seems like the landscape is changing every time we go back and look, but I haven't given up yet.
You're supposed to meet with him today.
I was supposed to meet with him today, but he couldn't get out of the so,
And it does happen. The Rowena crossing is a quiet zone. The White Salmon crossing is a quiet zone. It can be done. Obviously,
well,
they don't want to do it. They make it pretty tough not to do it.
this is not the first time I've tried this. When I was the city manager in Baker City, we had 5 public crossings in the middle of town. And one city councilor, bless your hearts, came in and says, I'm going to get this done. So he came in and he said, well, let's put the question on the ballot and see if the citizens are going to be willing to support this. And he said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so we put it on the ballot. Would you be willing to spend almost $500,000 per crossing in order to silence the train horns in Baker City? It was defeated 72% to 18%. The 10% didn't vote. And the council said, well, okay, because we're going to end up spending $500,000 on Great Lane. That should, and I'm asking the railroad, I'm trying to lessen your risk. You already hit one sawdust truck there. Why don't you help us with this? And that's what Aaron Hunt was going to do for us. The guy that's the governmental representative for UP in Oregon. I was going to ask him the question while I'm standing on the crossing. Why won't you help us? Wait and see what his response is. So anyway, that's,
That meeting's been rescheduled then?
he hasn't told me when he's coming back, but he's a responsible guy. We have between the Union Pacific Railroad and Burlington Northern, we have an annual rail summit in the gorge. And we all get together, the governments get together and talk. We actually had Lance Fritz, who is the chairman of the board of Union Pacific Railroad here in town, to talk to him about these kinds of issues. So we're trying to keep those relationships going. Working.
I want to hear the answer to that question when you ask me.
I do too.
Very curious. That's all for me.
Good. Well, that's all for me. I think you guys have said everything I would say, so I'm ready to move on to other matters. We got,
While you're all talking,
Oh.
no, I don't mind. I don't mind.
And on that note.
hold on. If we do form some type of neighborhood watch, would you guys be interested in a bi-weekly report that we could provide? Because I believe here, some of us are already doing it. We want an update, or should we just take it under?
I think it'd help us